Wisp Sports Radio, the voice of women in sport.
Hello and welcome to our first episode of 2020. I'm Chris Stafford and this is The Horse Show, Season 5, Episode 1. If you would like to join in the conversation, you can do so on social media by following us at Wisp Sports. You can also reach us via email at info@wispsports.com. Our first guest this year on The Horse Show is the Chair of Women in Racing in the UK, Tallulah Lewis. Tallulah explains the work of the organisation that was founded in 2009. Its vision is to reach women across the industry, to raise their profile and, with that visibility, encourage more women to be appointed into senior roles. Their hope is that more women will come into horse racing as a profession. They are seeking to enhance mentoring and development opportunities, as well as develop cross-industry working groups and facilitate the chance to network in order to share knowledge and best practices in an industry which has traditionally been male-dominated. And as the organisation celebrates its first decade, I began by asking Tallulah what they're looking forward to in the next decade. Are you excited about what 2020 can bring you and the organisation?
Yeah, I think very much so. I think we kind of had our 10-year anniversary last year, and it feels like kind of Women in Racing as an organisation is sort of hitting the ground running off the back of that, with quite a few really exciting things happening. And so yeah, there's a lot going on, a lot coming up this year, which for sport and for the horse racing sport, I think is going to be, really interesting for the public who love the sport, and the wider public who might not necessarily know much about it. It feels like there's quite a big buzz about horse racing at the moment, which is great.
Well, obviously you're doing a lot to extend that message well beyond the sport too, I think. And you mentioned that you just had your 10th birthday, your anniversary, founded in 2009. Let's take a little look back in that rearview mirror, Tallulah, and talk about how the organisation started. What was the catalyst for it?
Yeah, it was founded off the back of our founding members, one of them being Sally Rowley-Williams, who really kind of looked at the horse racing sport as a kind of participation in it and an owner, and also someone with a career in the sport, and really looked and saw that there wasn't a place 10 years ago for women to meet other women working in the sport, for women to kind of drive and kind of build a career into the sport. And at that time, it's definitely changed since. There weren't any senior appointments across the industry of women. And I think that was something that for Sally and the founding members, really saw as an opportunity, because you kind of look across horse racing, and horse racing has always had women being part of it as jockeys, as trainers, working at race courses, in administration, on the bloodstock side. There's, women have always featured heavily. You look at one of the most famous person in the world, the Queen, and she is, has been fundamental to British horse racing. And I think, they recognised that, they really had a vision to raise the profile of women working in it, and to help drive women to senior positions, and also to help women who not necessarily want to be at board level, but just reach their own personal goal to get there.
It's interesting when we talk about women in horse racing, because it's specific, especially in England. There are women with horses right across the board in all equestrian sport traditionally, and have had very high profiles. But there's not that access in racing, and there never has been, which it seems to me, a bit of a conundrum or a dichotomy really, because in equestrian sport, we've been so prominent. Why do you think that is today when there are more equal opportunities available?
Yeah, I think it's a really interesting point. I think, when you're often kind of, younger people associate equestrian sports and ponies and, show jumping and 3-day eventing, and with amazing female riders, and of course there's male riders in there. And I think with horse racing, it's got a very long history, entwined with the country. Um, and I think, just the people working in the sport, and it was one of the first sports to kind of be regulated and have a regulatory body. And at that time, through its history, those positions were all filled by men, as it was across all industries and businesses across the country. And I think once you kind of go in that and trying to then bring, as the years go on, and we are now very much in an advanced society where, diversity across the board, we know that that's something that really drives companies and sports forward. um, I think there is opportunity in horse racing, and I think over the last year we've definitely seen some significant senior hires. And it's less about the sort of, broadcasting that it's unequal, more trying to raise awareness that, there are fantastic women in sport and in horse racing, and that if you want to come into the racing industry, you can actually reach the places you want to get to now. And there is a support network there that'll help you do it. And that, that support network is made up of men and women. And I think it's all about now of, you know, trying to show people that it's not a closed off sport. And that, what we want to do is show that there are those role models and those people in positions where, if someone leaving school or finishing their education saw that, they thought, actually, that's, a career for me.
Now, when you say the opportunities, Tallulah, you're talking about in administration or equally as much, riding opportunities?
I think it's administration. There's definitely more so. I think riding, we've got the superstars. We've got some phenomenal riders at the moment. Holly Doyle, Bryony Frost, Josephine Gordon, Rachel Blackmore, to name, a few. Hayley Turner, who's been, at the top of the game for a number of years now, which are all great to have those kind of key women up there. One of the issues that we found, and something that we've kind of supported some research into as an organisation, is the kind of entrance into the racing schools. Is actually a majority female entrant into those jockey schools. But the kind of difference between the professional jockeys, male and female, is only 14% hold a professional license. And when you think, if you've got kind of 70% coming into the jockey schools who are female, what's happened there? Why is that drop off? So I think there is a disparity there when it comes to kind of looking at that pathway. And I think that's maybe one of the areas that as an industry we need to look at. And it's something I know that the British Horse Racing Authority is looking into as part of their diversity and racing steering group, is that pathway of a jockey to see, where this drop off rate coming from, because it's quite a stark figure.
Yeah, it's interesting. You mentioned those three racing schools. The races, I'm guessing you meant Newmarket, Yorkshire, and Lambourne.
Yes.
Right. They're the key hubs for our wider audience here. They are the key areas, the centres of racing in the UK. And the opportunities you talked about coming into racing, the secondary point of that, of course, is the retention rate as jockeys as well. What do you think your organisation is doing, or has done, or hopes to do in the future to retain them in the sport of racing? When it comes to a career as a jockey, and then subsequently as a trainer, really.
Yeah, a jockey as a trainer, and then also, as those people coming in that necessarily don't want to be a jockey, but are stable and stud staff, who without them we don't have the horses, we don't have,
Of course,
we don't have the population to drive the sport forward. And I think that's something we've definitely recognised this year. And Women in Racing have actually launched a new project at the back end of 2019 called Racing Home, which is looking into what it's like and what it feels like to be a working mother in the horse racing industry. Because one of the statistics that has been looked at by other organisations in the industry is that retention rate and that drop off. And there's a significant drop off for women, kind of into their late 20s, early 30s, going through to kind of 40, and there's a massive drop off of resource and employees that happens there, and that's something we've recognised. So the Racing Home project we've launched. We had a symposium which kicked off in November, which was fantastic because we invited senior members of the racing industry across all the different sectors to attend, and it was a discussion over this topic, and it's something that we think actually hasn't really been spoken about. Maternity leave, coming back to the sport after you've had a child, how that can impact what role and what job you want to do. It's a bit of an untouched topic, not just I think in horse racing, but actually across all sort of global business. It's an untouched topic, and we really want to, get into the nitty gritty on it. So we've launched a symposium which was really well received, and we really kick-started the conversation. And that's actually going to be followed by regional workshops in those sort of major racing hubs across the country of Lambourn, Newmarket, Scotland, Yorkshire, London, to go out and speak to participants in the sport, to see what issues they find, being a woman and motherhood and coming back to the sport, and how they juggle that. And we're doing it in conjunction with an academic institute so that they can do a piece of research on it as well, which is really exciting because it means we'll actually have some data and some evidence that we can take back to the sport, and collaboratively work on a solution that might really change the way we're going with this retention rate.
And the other aspect of horse racing, which has happened in the last 20, 30 years, I would say, is the training and education aspect, isn't it? And the structure that there is now, not just through the racing schools, but with the national vocational qualifications. I know I was involved with it way back when that started, but it's become much more than that now, isn't it? There is an actual infrastructure and a mechanism with which women can progress across the standards and across all horse industries, but specifically important for horse racing because it wasn't there before. You mentioned there the stable lasses. We used to call them just lads. I mean, there's just as many women now, I think, in racing that are actually grooming, as we would say in the rest of the horse world. And that's an important structure for anyone coming into the sport who may then eventually progress and advance into administration once they're actively retired from the yard, so to speak.
Completely. And I think, what's really interesting is we have the British Horse Racing Authority's Careers in Racing, which is a fantastic arm of their organisation, which really focuses on highlighting what you can do in the sport. It's not just necessarily the being a jockey or working on a race course. All the other components that go up to build this sport, the veterinary side of it, the breeding and the stud side of it is very specialist. And I think what's great is there now are, as you said, vocational courses. There's also a number of universities offering degrees that have partnered with the sport to offer a degree. I think education has become, and higher education has become, something that's quite important to the next generation coming through, and having those opportunities for them there, which gives them a formal qualification but with the practical skills you need to work with animals, has been really important. And there's such variety. You've got the courses offered by the National Stud aren't just for apprenticeships, there for people changing career. I think that's something that's really interesting as well. The sport's really recognised is, across the country, people coming out of a career they might have had up until their 30s and realising maybe they don't want to work in the city, or ex-servicemen. There is a role where all of their skill sets actually could be really well utilised in horse racing. And I think the industry has really, caught on to that idea and is offering those services now, which is fantastic.
Yeah, those transferable skills, I think, have been highlighted with the vocational qualification system and how you can transfer. You mentioned the bloodstock breeding industry, of course, which is unique. When it comes to racing, you can transfer into the blood, and many do too. So, and not just, with the horses, but in administration as well. But I want to come back to your resources at Women in Racing, because you do have unique resources available to women. Let's talk about those.
Yeah, it's a fantastic opportunity. The membership, we very much keep our sort of subscription fees low. They're under £30 for members, and there's also a sort of concessions fee for those working for charities or who are part of the stud and stable staff. And out of that, we our kind of main core offerings is our mentoring program. So we're really unique in that, actually within the horse racing industry, the formal program we have of mentors is one of a kind. We've at the moment got about 40 partnerships on the go. And it's great. Any member can log onto the website, submit an application, and they'll be paired up with a mentor who they can set, long-term goals, short-term goals with, and it's a effectively a one-on-one mentoring coach. And I think there's something really unique and powerful about women basically linking up with another person who can guide them through that piece of their career and need help with it. And that's something we're really pleased that we've been able to facilitate. The range of list of mentors and their backgrounds, go from vets to solicitors through to MDs, people working in banking, but also in media and public relations. So it's a great mix of mentors. There really is something for every member there.
Are there any female agents for jockeys agents at all, Tallulah?
I believe there are a couple. It's one of those areas of the sort of horse racing world, which I think is often kind of happens without you realizing it happens. I know of two, but beyond that, I think they are all men, and also it's quite a small pool of jockeys agents. I think quite a few agents have numerous jockeys, and so there's not a vast number of agents out there looking after only one jockey. I think they tend to have quite a number of them on their books.
Yeah, interesting. Now, you mentioned some of the events of the mentoring program, of course. What are you looking forward to in 2020? Do you have any plans to develop in other areas over the next year or so?
Yes, we do. We definitely, we've got our events that we tend to kind of have 4 or 5 core events throughout the year, plus regional events that happen. And we're just in the midst of kind of finalising those. But we'll be having a mentoring event like we did last year, which is a great one where we talk about mentoring, and some of our mentors are there, and it's a meet and greet just to kind of help introduce members to them to broker those relationships. We'll also be doing a Royal Ascot preview evening, which is always a great event, but we tend to do that one slightly differently. It's a bit more of a kind of demystifying event rather than the kind of traditional preview evenings, which can be quite male dominated. They don't offer a lot of time for explanations towards the gambling and the betting aspect, and form and stuff. So we try to make it educational as well. We'll also be doing our Grand Women's Summit again at Aintree, which is a fantastic event that we do alongside the Jockey Club, which happens on the Friday of the Grand National meeting. And it's a really great event. Last year it focused on mental health, and we had a really proactive discussion with the audience about that. So we've got our big events again happening this year, and they're going to be published within the next week or so and open for registrations. And it's great because it's members and non-members, so we like to kind of mix it up and have as many people there. So if you come along, you can bring a friend or a colleague to introduce them to the organisation.
Now, you've also had events at the Burley Horse Trials as well. Tell us about those.
Yeah, it was a kind of a fantastic crossover, which I think if you're, into horse racing or any equestrian sport, you always have an appreciation for the other kind of equestrian sectors that are out there. And the last few years we've run an event on the Friday at Burley and kind of done a course walk, but also a networking opportunity. And we have had talks from some of the founding stewards who are part of Burley, but also Paul Roger, one of their sponsors. So we had a great time this year doing some champagne tasting. We always kind of like to keep the events fun and interesting treats like that for the members. And this year we're looking at actually some of the other events that are 3-day eventing events that are going on to see if we can kind of change it up kind of geographically around the country to make sure we're looping in as many people as possible. But it's always nice to cross over. I think there's a real appreciation, crossing over into the rest of the equestrian world.
Yeah, I think that's a win-win situation because let's face it, when it comes to horses, there's a lot of off-the-track thoroughbreds that go into eventing, for example, jumping.
Well, William Fox-Pitt's had quite a few X-race horses that he's taken to the, 4-star stage. So it's exciting to see them out there. And I think some of our, the members those who are interested in breeding and the bloodstock side of things can really identify which ones they might have had a link to, which is nice.
Yes, I mean, it is. I think it's good for everybody. It's a win-win, isn't it, to have that cross-pollination?
Yeah, and also as well as kind of, it's, as I said, the events are open to non-members as well. And so people who have family and friends who are just interested in the, in 3-day eventing or show gyms are coming to the event, it shows that actually there's career opportunities in horse racing, that their skills and knowledge of the other equestrian sports actually can bring benefit. I think there's a lot of crossover there with career opportunities. I know that quite a few people in the horse racing industry compete and enjoy the other sides of the sport, so it's a good recruitment tool as well.
Yes, for sure. Well, I know a lot of eventers that love their day at the races, that's for sure.
It's a great way to entertain clients as well, so it's always something a bit different, right. I think.
Yes, absolutely. Well, we're getting into the end of the wind. We're looking at the you mentioned Aintree and the national. Of course, there's Cheltenham, the Gold Cup festival. That, of course, being another highlight too. Do you do any activities this spring that you'd like to mention for the women in racing? Will you be at any of these big events?
So we tend to always have lots of our committee members work in the sport and at race courses and the members as well. So we've got at Aintree the Grand Women's Summit on the Friday, which is our first one that links into one of those major festivals. And then what we like to do is kind of put out on social media and on our platforms across kind of Twitter and Instagram if a women in racing committee member or other members are attending, and tend to kind of pop out a message to say if anyone else is here who wants to meet up and say hello or watch a race together. It's a nice way of linking up the network, which is so important, I think, for improving your career. If you bump into someone or meet someone new through bumping into them racing, you can call upon them at a later stage. And I think that's very much how the industry is built. So it's a great advantage for members to do that as well.
Yeah, wonderful networking opportunity. How many members do you currently have then at Tallulah?
So it's one of our key drives this year is to increase the membership, but we've got just over 300. So not a vast amount. I'd certainly like more. One of the things we're doing at the moment is approaching the big organisations within the sport, to say to them it could be part of, an employee's benefits package, because the subscription fees are so low, but the benefits that an employee might get out of it, such as the mentor or being able to apply for our bursary fund, that's something I'll be working on over this year, going out to those kind of big employers across the sport, because I think it's a great thing if you're an employer to say to new members of staff or current members of staff that you'll help them be part of the organisation and for them to develop their career through it.
And is there anything else you would like our listeners to know about the organisation, Tallulah, before we let you go?
Well, we would love to hear from anyone that has, an interest in being part of it. Our website is womeninracing.co.uk, and there's lots of information on there, and you can send an email inquiry, and that's something that I'll pick up directly. So please do check us out, and we're always looking at ways to improve as an organisation. So if you've got any thoughts as well, send them our way.
And tell everyone where they can find Women in Racing online and on social media, Tallulah.
So our website is www.womeninracing.co.uk. Our Twitter handle is womeninracing1, and so is our Instagram handle. It's the same. We'd love to have you give us a follow, and hopefully if we bump into any of the listeners, please give us a wave, because we'd love to meet you.
That's great. And as you say, you do things in style with champagne at the races.
Yes, definitely.
Well, the very best of luck with the organisation, Tallulah, and thanks again for taking the time to come on the Horse Show.
Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure to be on.
Hi, I'm Nikki Daly. I'm an international field hockey player for Ireland, and I'm also a motorsport engineer. I'm a proud WISP ambassador because I am very passionate about women in sport, particularly in hockey and motorsport. I think WISP Sports is a fantastic platform. It promotes all women in sport from any level, right the way down through to grassroots level. And I think it's really important for young girls to be able to see their role models, to see that people are out there achieving great things at different levels in sport, and it gives them something to look up to and try to achieve themselves. If you would like to follow me, you can follow me on Facebook, Nikki Daly, Instagram, Twitter, and under my Formula Female Instagram and Facebook as well for the motorsport side of what I do. Thanks for listening and helping WISP Sports turn up the volume on women in sport.
And again, those links to the Women in Racing UK website are on our show notes accompanying this episode. That's at wispsports.com, where you'll find all the show notes accompanying episodes of The Horse Show and all of the other shows that we cover here at Wisp Sports. wispsports.com is the place to go when you have a moment. And you can also, of course, join in the conversation by following us on social media at Wisp Sports. And if you find yourself on iTunes and you have a moment, we would really appreciate a review on there. It makes a big difference to where we rank on iTunes. So do stop by and tell us what you think about the shows that we cover here on Wisp Sports. Until the next time, thanks for listening and helping us turn up the volume on women's sports. Goodbye for now.